Hello, and welcome back to Minecraft Through the Ages, my series where I've been updating a single world through every version of Minecraft, ever released in order and covering all the changes made along the way to both my world and the game. Before we even get started about talking Minecraft stuff, I just wanted to thank everyone for subscribing. As of writing this, we just hit 500 subscribers, so thank you so much. It's honestly crazy that many people care about me playing 15-year-old Minecraft versions, but here we are. I have a question relating to hosting a server for all of you who subscribed later in the video, but for now I digress. We started last episode by updating our world to Classic 20A, which brought along with it a slew of huge changes and additions, so it shouldn't be too disappointing then that the next update only makes some minor changes. Classic 0.0.21a, released on June 22, 2009, despite being small, is an update with changes absolutely worth talking about. Now, I'm not saying that we'll be spending too much time in the version, as the most notable part of 21A proper is, for us at least, the hang bug introduced that causes the game to freeze randomly, requiring a relaunch of the app to fix. Now, perhaps in a smaller world this might not be as much of an issue. I mean, shout out to Bluecrab for playing this version long enough to crash 114 different times, but for us, in our 768 by 768 world, which takes quite a while to load, the hang bug essentially makes the world unplayable. With that in mind, I'll try and quickly talk about all the changes made in 21A before we move to a version that actually makes our world playable again. Firstly though, I just have to issue a small correction. In the last episode, I called the newly added inventory just that, an inventory, when really, giving it that name is a bit of an anachronism. As was pointed out in the comments by Zelinator and Monotone Hell, the actual name at the time for this menu was the build menu, hence the B key to open it. I will admit that all makes a lot more sense now. Moving on, 21A actually makes some changes to this newly added build menu, so let's talk about it. 21A gives the build menu something strange that it didn't have before. A grey background, something that I honestly didn't notice was really missing until it was added. I say missing because when compared to the last episode, yeah, this does look a lot cleaner. Or as clean as it can, despite the fact that the blocks are slightly off-center, but whatever, it's not a big deal! What is a big deal is the fact that it's now possible to walk and change slots of items in your hotbar while the build menu is open. Now let's really talk about this. If you're watching this, you likely know enough about Minecraft to know that this is not the case anymore, and that you can open your inventory in the modern game, but you can't perform any actions outside of it. But, as we can see with this being added all the way back in Classic 21A, there's a huge span of versions in which this is not the case. You were able to freely walk around with the now build menu, soon to be inventory, all the way until the release of Alpha version 1.0.15, a version released an entire year after Classic 21A on August 3rd of 2010. Now, this is, in my opinion, a really cool thing to be able to do, and I always wondered why Notch would remove such a thing, especially after having kept it in the game for so long, again, over a year. My best guess is that it has to do with the implementation of survival multiplayer, as while Classic has had completely functional multiplayer server support since 15A, when it came to rewriting the game in InfDev, servers were simply not on the list of things to really focus on for a long time, with server-side inventory not being added back to Alpha at any point. It was in Alpha version 1.0.12 that multiplayer testing first began, and on August 3rd, with the advent of Alpha version 1.0.15, Notch released the most bare-bones server implementation, along with a few blog posts highlighting where he was at. I won't really be getting into all that here, as we'll get there in the series, one day, but for now all that's important is that you know that it's likely because of multiplayer being added that this feature I love so much was removed, after having been implemented all the way back in the version we are currently playing in and talking about. Now, let's not get derailed and let's finish talking about all the changes made by Classic 21A, as we've only mentioned one so far. Along with these build menu changes, there were reportedly a lot of back-end changes as well. Notch said on his blog, quote, "New client, fixes a few annoyances. Listing better FPS on some computers, actually works on MacBook now, and picking mouse over in the game should work everywhere now, as the fix is implemented." Classic 21A also originally broke mouse auto-clicking, but that was fixed by a re-upload. Other than that, those are the full changes made before the next update of the game. Frankly, I'm glad that the update was light on changes, seeing as we couldn't really play in it in our world, so let's just move right on, and bring back a proper transition from the first few episodes. While Classic 21A might have just been the dessert to 20A's main course, Classic 22A, released shortly after on June 29, 2009, was an entire meal of its own. I say this because it was this update that addressed what was, at this point in Minecraft's development, its most glaring flaw. The game was silent. Yeah, I haven't really made mention of it. I mean, of course, what was there to mention, but for the entire time that we've been playing Minecraft so far, we've been doing so in complete silence. It frankly hasn't been too much of a bother to me personally, as most of the time I'm playing with my own music or YouTube video playing in the background, but sound design is a big part of any game, and it follows that if Minecraft is starting to settle into its own, that Notch thought he ought to start finishing off the basic game features. You know, I have to say, however, I don't think it's a coincidence that sound was added when it was, as if you'd been checking the Minecraft IRC chat, you would have seen something brewing. After all, it was in this IRC chat that Notch and C418 first spoke about music and sound. In the last episode, I brought up C418's involvement in the early Minecraft community and TigSource IRC chats, but rather than reading through all of those, something that would be a pretty serious time commitment, and trying to piece the story of his involvement together like a real researcher, instead, we can simply get it straight from the horse's mouth. Thankfully, it's that simple, as on Daniel C418 Rosenfeld's website, he has written the following. Making music was a fun hobby. I sucked at it, but it was a pastime that seemed productive and not useless like playing video games forever, so I essentially never stopped making music. Over the course of, 3 years, I actually got sort of decent at making not so terrible music too. Now, this is also the time when I learned about indie games and communities based around that, like TigSource. TigSource is always kind of a tight-knit community full of hyper-creative individuals like Phil Fish and Derek Yu, developers who want to prove themselves and be artistic, creative. I loved that community. I hung out in their IRC channel, which is probably where I honed my English skills since I never really communicated with anyone in that language yet. This is also where I started to learn the infinitely complicated art of game design and what it means to actually create a piece of software that people use for entertainment purposes. It's a community I cherish to this day. It's also the community where I met Marcus, or I guess you kids know him as Notch. Marcus was a nobody at that time, like me. However, Marcus had this great idea about this block game, and he really appreciated the art output I had to offer, so we decided to team up to work on what became Minecraft, the project that most people know me from. And to this date, I'm still working on it, adding more and more compositions to it. Minecraft taught me the art of Foley, and if you remember the old times of yore, you know that it was kind of rough. I learned it though, and I think I'm pretty solid at it if you tell me to do a thing. But more importantly, Minecraft taught me the art of minimalism in music, and the art of contrast. I wanted to create a soundtrack that does not fit to the visuals represented on screen. Minecraft is a pixelated, chaotic mess. The soundtrack, however, is very calm and often acoustic, even orchestral. People really appreciated that soundtrack, and it's most likely the reason why you are reading this not very well written biography of myself. When I found that, I thought it was just too perfect to not include as the backstory of how C418 got involved into Notch's little solo indie dev project that, still to this point, didn't really have a lot of eyes on it. For as good of a recap as that mini-biography is, it was quite broad and spanned much more time than the single version we want to talk about, so let's get back to focusing on exactly what was changed in regards to sound for the update to Classic 22A. First of all, there's now background music tracks in the game, specifically 3, labeled in the files as column1, column2, column3, and column4.ogg. Now, I said that there were only 3 songs, and that's largely true, as despite there being 4 different columnx.ogg files, column4 and column2 are actually duplicates of one another. It would be wrong not to listen to the songs, so let's go through them one by one before we move on to the sound effects that were also added in this same update. Column 1, later given the simple title of Minecraft, was the first song made for the game, according to C418. Minecraft is by far the most minimalist song, and also the first song I created for the game. It's purely pentatonic in scale, builds up very slowly, and then slowly fades away. This is kind of what I built the entire soundtrack around. I couldn't find C418 saying anything about this one like I could the other two, so let's just take a listen. Column 2 went on to be titled Clark. This name makes much more sense when you also mention another song from Minecraft Volume Alpha, Chris, as these tracks were named in reference to English electronic musician Chris Clark. Finally, we have Column 3, which went on to be Minecraft's most popular music track, Sweden. Sweden is by far the most popular song, and I think it's because of its very minimalistic chord progression that you can follow very easily. It is also based on the principle the song Minecraft is built on: slow build-up, slowly fading away. I think it goes without saying that the music of Minecraft is something special. Hell, while writing this, C418's Volume Alpha was selected as some of the defining sounds of history and culture, and will join the National Recording Registry of the Library of Congress. But even at this point in the game, with only 3 different songs, I think the quality was already pretty clear. As both I and C418 mentioned earlier, however, music isn't the only thing added in this update, with 4 other Foley sounds arriving at the same time. As I'm fairly certain that there aren't official names for them, I'm going to go with the names for the sounds that the wiki uses, that being grass, gravel, stone, and wood sounds. The grass sounds were used for dirt and leaves, and a slightly higher pitch sound was used for all the cloth as well as sponge. I'll play them both to see if you can hear the slight difference. Gravel sounds were used for sand and gravel, sounding like this. The wood sounds were used for planks and wood, and sounded like this. The stone sound was also special, as along with being used for stone, cobblestone, gold ore, iron ore, and coal ore, a much higher pitched version of the stone sounds were used for the glass and gold blocks. There's some slight randomness involved in this pitch changing, so 2 breaking sounds are never quite alike. There's even more reuse than that, however, as Notch went on to reuse the breaking sounds as footsteps as well. We know this was specifically a Notch-made decision, as C418 said in the IRC chat that, "I actually really love the destroying sounds being footsteps." That is everything sound effect added this update out of the way, so how about let's talk about something other than sounds for a little while. First off, I want to credit this comment for the suggestion of adding flowers to the cacti I built in the last episode. I like the suggestion on its own merits, as I just like how the addition turned out aesthetically as an addition to the build, but also because I love dating this video, and it's a nice reference to the new 1.21.5 Spring to Life game drop. Man, why can't we just call them updates, Mojang? Why you have to make me say game drop? Anyways, here's where I want to ask about the prospect of hosting a classic server again. I've hosted classic servers in the past, and have always enjoyed the process, but I wanted to know what people would be most interested in doing. I think the 2 main options that I've been thinking about would be hosting a regular creative 0.30 world, or starting in an earlier version of the game and updating it slowly, MTTA style. Okay, but not that slow. Let me know what you think in the comments below, or in the Discord linked in the description about the idea, and let's get back to talking about some sound-related bugs and discontinued features added in the newest update. Normally, we only talk about the bugs fixed in a version rather than those added, but I think this is an example of something simply too insane to pass up. Now, first of all, before talking about this bug, I need to credit Bluecrab and his Minecraft series for bringing it to my attention in the first place, as when he mentioned its lifespan, I thought it was just too crazy not to mention. Rather than summarize what he said, I'm just going to play a section of episode 18, so go and support his videos when you're done here. For some context, Bluecrab is talking about the footstep noises we talked about earlier in this video, and how the game simply grabs the block below the player to get the sound to play.
If you indulge me on a tangent, this is the first feature that depends on the block that the player is on. Using the block directly under the player or entity is not the correct way to check what block they're walking on. And this was the start of a bug that was doomed to infect Minecraft for ages. This bug was not fixed until the 1.20 snapshot 23W18A that came out in 2023, an astonishing 14 years later. That version fixed bug MC1133, which fixed all the other related problems, like avoiding soul sand and magma block effects by walking on the edge, or not getting the slime block effect when you land on the edge. This makes it one of the longest lasting bugs in Minecraft history.
I'll link the bug report in the description in case you want to verify it, but yeah, you heard that right. 2009 to 2023. Outside of that, there aren't really many long-term bugs fixed in 22A, as most fixes introduced are for bugs created by the sound system. I think that with that out of the way, we can move on to some interesting discontinued features created by the way that sounds were implemented, so let's talk about it. Specifically, there's a discontinued feature surrounding the Steve/player textured mobs. They still don't officially have a name as far as I'm aware, so I think I'll continue to just call them Steve or Steves. I haven't really mentioned the Steves since they were able to be spawned in using G in pre-classic RD160052, but there has been one change in between then and now. I technically could have mentioned that in classic 15A, they stopped flailing their head around when walking, but other than that, the Steve's head and the mechanics around them have remained completely unchanged until 22A. The big change here is that the Steves were given footsteps. This makes sense, as the player has footsteps as well, but the way that Notch went about implementing the footsteps for the Steves, adding a make step sound tag that is meant to be set to true, meant that updating old Steves will result in the tag being set to false and the Steves not making footsteps. This is a case of the game simply not accounting for the fact that since classic 14A_08, Steves have saved to the world. This is a textbook example of a discontinued feature, but it sadly is a short-lived one. This temporary discontinued feature will only be observable before classic 0.25_05 survival test. I've never outright responded to the question, why don't you incorporate the Steves in your builds more, but sadly, this right here is the reason. Don't get me wrong, if I could keep them, I 100% would have built with the Steve mobs more, but they're sadly removed in the survival test versions that are on the near horizon. All this is to say that while the Silent Human mob is a cool discontinued feature completely worth mentioning, it's a temporary one, so I won't be building a big display for it or anything. I mentioned classic 14A_08 just now, something that's funny for a very specific reason. Now, to understand what I'm talking about, I have to bring you back to C418 and his time in the TIG Source IRC chat. It's my understanding that the following video was created as a demo reel to show Notch what a C418 sound and soundtrack for Minecraft would look like. It's important to make it clear that this video isn't showing a real version of the game made and lost to time, although there are a lot of examples of versions like this from the classic era. Instead, this video is simply footage of classic 14A_08 with sound effects and music edited on top. Let's take a listen. Rather than just playing the video, I think it'd be interesting to sort of talk about some of the things that, I've noticed inside of the video, because there's a number of things that are actually worth talking about. So, first of all, I'll just mention that obviously, along with all the different sound effects, being different, they actually get louder as they're broken, which is a way of changing the pitch that isn't shown off in game. You can hear there's also like bird ambiance in the background that's really lovely, but yeah, as they break blocks, the pitch always sort of increases. I talked about in the video how there's already like a pitch change included in game, but it's more of a random pitch change within like a small range. I also am excited to mention here this really cool water effect. I don't think there's anything in the game like this yet. Obviously, it does get added, but especially when it goes under the water and it becomes muffled, it's a really, really cool... Yeah, you can hear everything sort of gets dampened out. It's a really cool effect. And you can obviously also hear Minecraft playing right now before it was ever added in game, so I'll just let that play. Obviously going to link this video down below for if you want to go watch it on your own, but it's pretty short. That's the whole thing. I really just think that this video is a super interesting piece of history, and think that I'd be remiss to not mention it now that sounds have been added to the game. I think when I first started this series, I was somewhat unsure that I would just have enough to talk about to sustain my enjoyment of making a series like this, especially at the start in the simple versions of the game that are classic Minecraft. This concern, though, I think at this point has been proven completely unfounded, because as time goes on, I only find more and more to talk about, and only ever feel more passionate about this world. I'm going to give you a tour of everything that I built and added to the world in Classic 22A_05 soon here, but before I do that, I'd just like to say I'm super glad that you've made it this far in the video. Thank you for watching, and on with the tour! And this is so nice. This is the first time I've had to worry about audio balancing because we actually have sound for the little tour segment. This is great. Though the music is kind of loud. I think I'm going to wait until it's done to actually start. I'll do this real quick. This is now what our pixel art section looks like. I know before we had, I think those 5 only. Or no, I think we also had the link. But since then, I've added quite a few more pieces of pixel art. I'll just come down here so you can see. A number of these are original creations, and a number of these, almost all of them actually, are from other places. Most of them from old classic Minecraft screenshots, like this little, I think it's Bubble Bobble character, as well as these two birds, this Metroid Samus, Ghastly, I know. I think this is like a Final Fantasy character, as well as this Tetris and this little gun. All of those were all taken straight from historical screenshots of either like classic 20A or 21A, or even as late as I think some of them are like 26, 27A. But that one is original. That's from a game called Rhythm Doctor, and of course I had to bring some Elmo in. Oh, and as well, obviously, had to have Bluecrab. Huge shout out. I guess I'll just let the music play. I enjoy the sound. We'll let it be what it is. Usually there's not music for these, or I guess usually I edit in my own music in post, but I'll let this play. This is nice. Anyways, you can see here I've got all the cactus flowers. I think I already showed that off in the episode, but that was a viewer suggestion that I quite like, so I made sure to add that. Another thing that I did in the desert area that is pretty notable is I also did an interior for the pyramid. I recently changed this sort of what's that called? There's a name for that. Oh, I don't know. I recently changed the top of the pyramid. Okay, we gotta restart. And then sort of made the change to have the top be gold and sort of that white wool to try and imitate the the Tura limestone casing that would originally be found in the pyramids. But I also recently here added an interior, and this is supposed to specifically, I have this here so it doesn't look as strange, but I've just got gold on the roof normally, but this flower is holding up the sand because for some reason, again, not got gravity in some parts of my world. I think it's got to do with the size. Anyways, as the music comes back in, this is supposed to be a representation of just the main, I think it's, oh geez, I'm gonna say this pyramid, the main pyramid, the big one where it goes down and up, and then there's the king's chamber, and I think through here it's the queen's chamber, right? Yeah, there's also the I've also got the queen's chamber down here. That's I'll throw a design up to show you what I'm talking about, because I assume most people probably don't know. Anyways, I'll put this back, and we can go up here to the king's chamber, where you've got the, you can imagine this would be the sarcophagus. You're gonna imagine, pretend there wasn't a, you're gonna imagine this is like the sarcophagus. That's what you're gonna imagine this is. Pretend there's not an awkward cut there where it took me like 8 years to remember sarcophagus. Anyways, built the interior of the pyramid. Think it's nice. Think it's fun to have it be a sort of recreation of a real pyramid. And it was a real challenge to do so, considering that sand, there's not a good way to make it float outside of just like, putting up flowers. So that's exactly what I did. As I'm walking over here, I should mention it's severely raining outside. It's like a serious storm. I was recording, as I said, I was testing out the sound, and I even captured like a super loud bout of thunder. So, oh Jesus, did you hear that? So if you hear some background noise, just know that it's just nature doing its thing. All right, it was a bit of a trek, but as the music kicks in, we're coming up on our next main build that we did here. In terms of big accomplishments, I'd say that the main thing that we did was this building here. I come from afar, so you can mainly see this sort of angle of it. But you'll see it's in this courtyard over here by the building we built in the last episode. Looks pretty nice from this angle. It looks pretty plain though. The extension that is onto it, you can't really see as much. I also did some small stuff out here. Like I've got a little sort of like a tent you can imagine selling art or something, or goods, as well as sort of just like a little path down to the windmill. But this is the main attraction here, is this building. I wanted to do another building with wool on the roof, because I thought it turned out so great here with the yellow. And that's exactly what I did. So I decided I'd build a big red roofed building. I haven't entirely decided what I wanted this to be. I think sort of town hall came to be make the most sense. Sort of town hall, and then like a theater to sort of, gather and have your meetings and whatnot. So you can imagine up here would sort of be like a common area with lots of seating and sort of, I imagine this is like a clock here and maybe a drink machine or something. And you can walk along here into the sort of Odeon, where Now, this is a bit of a deep cut, but I don't know if you've ever sat in one of those 360 theaters, but this is exactly what I'm imagining. A theater where there's sort of like balustrades in the middle that you can lean against, and all around you is projected the screen. But you can imagine that they'd have all sorts of meetings in there. But I thought it'd be fun to have that sort of represented, because I recently went to go actually watch a movie in one of these theaters at Disney, and it really left an impact on me for some reason. So I decided I'd build one in my world. That's exactly what this is. This isn't like a deep cut or anything. It's exactly ripped off from I think it's the Chinese and the Canadian pavilion that both have these 360 videos. Maybe the France pavilion as well, but I only saw the one in the Chinese pavilion. Anyways, I really like the look of this build from the outside. I'll go walk around this side here so you can also see it from a different angle, but I think I did a pretty good job, and as this area continues to fill up more and more, I think that this will sort of be a nice standout in the middle with its huge red roof. So this is the huge rose. I'll show you a clip of it from afar so you can sort of see the general gist of what I'm talking about. But I wanted this to sort of both be a bit of a landmark in this area and also a fun way to get over this sort of barrier. I like the idea of being able to go in and out of all the different worlds, and so I wanted to create sort of a good way to get around this corner here. And because of all the water, I thought it'd be smart to just sort of build up and around. So my idea is that in the end, this will be just have a ladder inside that you can climb up, and then there'll be some water here that you can jump down and get into this area without having to go all the way around. But for now, I've just got leaves on the side that you can jump up all the way and drop down to here, where you've got a little staircase up to this sort of corner where we've got the original pre-classic world. Where I was doing some demonstrations of sounds and whatnot, so I'm sure you saw this in the background, this flower, but we've also got this other 2 quarters that fills in this also pre-classic world, as well as the, I think it's 11A world, or maybe it's 13A actually, I think it is, because that's when liquids were added. Didn't want to build anything in this side just because I like leaving it how it is. I think this is sort of the most complete world, so I'm fine to just have a little staircase here, and I think this looked the nicest keeping the wall intact. But I travel this often, you just don't really see it because it's off camera. Sure haven't really spent a whole lot of time in this world for a hot minute, this pre-classic world, but I'm climbing up to the tippy top of this tower here, so you can see another big project that I've been working on. I'm sure you saw in the background was clothifying this section of the world here. Was there a reason, really? And I also put a barn. That you didn't see. I'll go tour the barn first. But what I was going to say is there a reason that I've clothified this entire area in particular? No, I just thought it'd be a fun project. I've seen other people do similar with their worlds, and I thought, seeing as for the first and last time in the foreseeable future that I'll actually have a lot of cloth, I might as well use it and sort of convert this little area while I still can, because I'm slowly going to be inching more and more towards being in a survival environment. So if I want to do goofy stuff like this, I have to while I still can. But you can see I replaced a bunch of sand down there with yellow wool, and all the trees with brown wool and whatnot. And then I came through and I also built this little barn here, which here, let me just delete. This is just maintenance for when I was building. I can just delete this stuff. Yeah, but you can see this is the barn that I began building, and it's got a bit of a shell, but I wanted to leave doing the interior for later. I wanted to do it on camera, because I feel like I don't often actually build on camera really anymore, so I thought that'd be a good little thing to add to the world tour. So I think along with having our regular scheduled tour, the only other thing that I was going to talk about is I added all the wool to the block museum that we have in this section of the world. I can show you exactly where that is, I guess. Alright, the music's blaring, we're climbing up the Pantheon steps, and this is what it looks like with all the wool in place as well. You can see we're almost out of space. In terms of the creative inventory, there's only a few more blocks that are going to be added anyways. So this is what the full thing looks like. If you're wondering how I got Bedrock, you can do that by taking the world into a server. If you're a server operator, there's a command to place down Bedrock, so that's exactly what I did. And I punched holes in the ceiling for all the grass and whatnot. I really like how all the colors look together. I think placed down all like this, they look really nice. And it'll be interesting to see too, actually, how they end up looking in beta 1.2 when the different color palette comes around. But anyways, back to what I was saying over there. I decided not to do building montages. I used to do sort of what is it? There's a name. Man, fuck. What am I talking about? Time lapse. Time lapse. Holy Jesus. Okay, ignore the awkward cut. I'm doing it again. Ignore the awkward cut. I remembered what I was talking about. I opted out of doing time lapses. Because I thought they were boring. I was watching the videos, and especially the video analytics, and everyone was leaving whenever I would do a time lapse, and I personally found it boring whenever I would watch another YouTuber, make a time lapse in their videos. And so ultimately I've decided I just sort of think that's boring. And so unless I have something to talk about while there's a time lapse, like unless it's just background footage, or I have, like a time lapse of something specific happening where I have details on screen, or like it's important or something, I've just decided that time lapses are sort of boring, that I want to stop doing them. So in lieu of that, I think it'd be interesting to try and add some more building into the tour aspect. So I think I'm going to build the interior of this while actually on camera. And just sort of talk about my thought process, because I think as much as I enjoy doing these sort of post hoc rationalizations of what I've built in Classic, it's almost more, maybe this is schizophrenic of me to say, but it almost makes more sense if you can see me coming up with it on the fly. You can be in on my insane illusions that I'm coming up with what that is, building in Classic. Because when you build in Classic, does it ever really make sense? Not so much. I think what I want to do for this area is have a different floor. I think having just the grass, quote unquote grass, be the floor is boring. And so I think instead I want to have there be like dirt and have that sort of, come out like that's, like where the horses are trampling, or that's, sort of what the cow's hooves do to the ground or whatnot. But I don't want it to be perfect. So I think it'd be good to sort of keep the corners green. So we'll see how that turns out. I think I will fill all this in with dirt at the bare minimum, because I just sort of built this off the ground, because I wanted there to be this little side section, but the terrain didn't really accommodate for it. This is legitimately all what the terrain looked like before. I just replaced it 1-to-1, so I'm going to have to do some, some terraforming as well, I guess, but it is what it is. Alright, I thought the breaking sound was maybe a little too loud, so, if it's still loud, let it be known I turned it down. But anyways, I think I'm just going to tear out this entire floor and then put the grass accents back in, because that seems easier. That, and I can just go around the edge on the outside and fix everything that's broken by me doing this. The other good thing about planning to show off the interior decoration of a barn is that I don't actually have a whole lot that I plan on building inside here, other than some stables and some storage, some hay. There's not a whole lot that actually is really in a barn, so it'll be pretty light on interior decoration, which also makes this an easy process. I'd be interested to know what everyone who watches' opinions are on the format of my content now, because I've been sort of changing things up at a pretty low rate now. I think I've sort of settled into a pretty good way of doing things, but I'd love to know what it is that you like and don't like, if you especially hated listening to my thought process while I build or whatnot. That's valuable information to me. I would still like to know nonetheless, so I think it'd be appreciated if you left a comment about what you like about the videos, what it is you don't like, what could be skipped. More feedback is always welcome. I sort of hate this green on the interior, though, if I'm honest. It kind of looks radioactive, so I think I might just try and switch it for some gravel, so that way we can still have some texture on the floor, have it not just be one big, patch of dirt, but I'm also able to, not have it look like a zombie fucking exploded on my floor, or like an alien died or something. I think if I were to have, so I can imagine like some sort of pulley system for pulling up the hay up over here, but you would need somewhere to store it still, so I think maybe this back corner I can imagine be sort of like a storage deal. Like if I got like this, and then we got, let's see, because I want to have there be hay bales on shelves. So if I were to do that, I would need the shelves to have at least 3 blocks of space in between them, because I need to actually be able to place the hay bales and make them look sort of bailey, you know? Because otherwise, it just sort of looks like random yellow wool. We gotta actually have some intentional bales here. It's gotta look like it's been manufactured and set up in this way, not just random. I think actually this is probably our best bet for this next level, but I think this looks good just for the bottom here. Maybe move this one over actually. If I do, because I need to still put in the beams. Perfect. And then if we just go like this, I think that works quite well. And then we can maybe have, if this is going to be the wall that has all the like hay and storage, we can have the tools and whatnot sort of around here. And then along this wall can be where we keep the horses or the actual pens. So we can section out maybe, this section could be like a sort of horse run. And then we could have maybe like a pen of, I don't know, fucking pigs or something in here. In this section. I like that. And we've got a bit of the center to actually stand and take in everything. I think that's pretty much perfect. And then I think that comes off pretty well, yeah. That definitely looks like hay. Sure, why not? And I think actually for this, if I just have it elevated by 1, because we don't have fences or anything like that, I think this generally gets the point across pretty well of what I want here. So we can have this be like the corner of this, and then have the horse run start right here, and then just sort of have like this be a gate here, and this be a gate here as well, same sort of deal. And then inside maybe we could have a bit more sort of gussied up, because you imagine that if there's a bunch of pigs in here, you know, they'd sort of be messing with the place. Maybe there should be like a feeding trough, though. I don't hate that idea. Do like one of those here for the pigs. And maybe this could be the feeding trough for the horse. I like that the idea that the horse and the pigs would sort of have a more gravelly, sort of messed up area. But I think that specifically with pigs, it'd be lots of mucky, muddy kind of shit like that. So maybe just some shrubbery in there and whatnot is not a bad idea. But all in all, I think that looks pretty good as that sort of section. And that maybe I just need, I think like a tractor here would be pretty good. But I think I should save that for another time, because I have no clue how I would build that in this scale. I think the main thing I should do is build up there and build some shelving sort of, you know, you can imagine storing like a shovel or some, you know, some general tools along the wall. Doing it like this, I think, is good, because yeah, then I can have like a shelf. I can do like here, and well, if I do it down here, then you can see out the window still on that side. I think that's good. Music kicking back in. That's lovely. So what could we be storing? You could store like you can imagine this to be like a shovel, and maybe some, I don't know, maybe this would be a leaf blower that you have sort of sitting out front of the way here, as well as you've got some sort of power tools hanging up there. I like the idea of a shovel. I think maybe if you're a farmer, of course it'd be important to have like a hoe or something of that sort of nature. I can imagine that's what that is, maybe some sort of farming equipment. I don't know what should be in this corner. What do they usually have in farms? I mean, there's usually a tractor. I mean, you gotta have like a nice seat, maybe a table and something. Have a nice seat and a little table here to just, you know, just to relax while you're in the barn. I like this, and then just sort of have see if I can fit a tractor in here. I mean, even still, just without it, it's nice. But here, let's actually use this as an opportunity to build a little way to get up here. Alright, and then while we're up here, this should probably have a railing. Seems a little dangerous otherwise. But I do think that this probably needs to be this wide, because I think it's a bit too wide otherwise. It's almost unrealistic. You wouldn't be able to store that much stuff up on this sort of a raftery kind of deal, is what I'm imagining this is. You definitely want to drop your hay down from up here, though, because they've got this lift to bring it up and into the barn. So you can imagine that there'd be a lot of hay up here. I'll build some more bales. Alright, you can see the music's coming a little bit down. I've got some hay bales on the top here, and you can jump down, and already it looks sort of a lot more lively. I think the last thing I want to do is maybe do some more sort of gravel in the path, but other than stuff like that, I think we've done a pretty good job here, all things considered. Yeah, I like this interior a lot. Alright, again, as I said, let me know how you feel about the format in general, and thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We've obviously got some things that are in progress that I haven't covered, but I think I'll just leave that for the next episode. So, thank you very much for watching, and bye.